Hi, my name is Olajide Olagunju, and I'm the author of the book, How to Resolve a Conflict, which I'd like to share with you on the screen. Yeah. How to Resolve a Conflict. This is the textbook for the lecture series you've just joined. The lecture series has the same name as the book, How to Resolve a Conflict. And this is How to Resolve a Conflict, lecture 41. I will be grateful if you can please subscribe to this channel before you continue. I'll also hope that you enjoy our interaction together. What we do here is that we read from the text, and then we have a discussion. Once again, welcome. I'm happy you could join me today. So I read. Before I read, I'd like to remind you of what we did in the last one or two lectures. We started looking at the person of the mediator. Who is the mediator? What is his role? How is she or he to comport himself or herself? What is her business, his business as a mediator? How does that differentiate him, her from a judge or an arbitrator? We spent some time trying to discuss the challenging, difficult issue of neutrality. Can you say a judge is neutral? Can you say an arbitrator is neutral? A mediator, of course, must be neutral. I was of the view that, well, while a judge or an arbitrator will be impartial, no interest on either side and either party, no stake in either party. A mediator must go further. A mediator must be neutral. And I said, well, you might want to argue that if you are impartial, that means you are neutral. I said, well, I'm not sure. Because the business of the judge and the arbitrator is to take a decision. What's the decision? I side with party A. I agree with party A. Maybe not side, but I agree with party A. For me, it's like siding. Well, you have reasons for siding with their performance before you, as a judge, as an arbitrator, is better based on some adjudicatory rules than party B. So within the adversarial system, of course, you are justifiable, you are right. But mediation is an amicable dispute resolution process. So you cannot say, I agree with party A, I disagree with party B. You can never do that as a mediator. So that's why I said, well, I would use the word neutral for the mediator, but I would not or may not use it for a judge and arbitrator, because a judge and arbitrator cannot be neutral. You have to decide which side you are on based on their performance before you, based on the precedents, law, rules that govern the adversarial processes called arbitration and judging, litigation. So I'm sure I'll get some feedback from you on that. And that's what happened in the last one or two lectures. Today we are continuing with the mediator. I read from the book, The Key Role of the Mediator: Ensuring Effective Communication. We have defined the mediator at the beginning of chapter 2 as a person who, quote, facilitates communication between the parties to promote reconciliation, settlement, or understanding. I think the mediator, as unquote, please, unquote, maybe I should speak to that quickly. The mediator is that neutral, that third party that facilitates communication, communication. communication between the parties for the purpose of promoting reconciliation. So she helps them to talk to one another so that they can begin to move towards reconciliation, settlement, or simply understanding. I said simply understanding advisedly because, as I said before, the people that decide the outcome of the mediation process, it's not the mediator, it's the parties. But it is the duty of the mediator to help them speak to one another, communicate. So that if reconciliation is possible, it will happen as they communicate. If settlement is possible, it will happen as they communicate. But assuming they are not able to reconcile or reach settlement, which is most of the time unlikely, but assuming they are not able to settle, at least the process helps them to understand each other, to understand each other's position. I think that's the basic thing. I use other words to describe this from another lecture in this series. We've seen that, or we'll get to see that later on. But the point I'm trying to make is that the minimum I think you should go for as a mediator is to help the parties understand what really it is that is fueling the conflict. Because people don't have conflict except something is fueling it, something makes it happen. What is that thing? The mediator, I think, has the primary duty to help them see what that thing is. I've said before, and I will repeat in future in this lecture series, that for me, it's unmet needs. That if parties' needs in a relationship have been met, there won't be conflict. They won't come to me as a mediator. So what I look for, and I will explain this in detail later when we are discussing chapter 10. What I'm looking for is, what is the need not being met in this relationship? And if I can get help the parties, help them to understand what that means, I think I would have succeeded. Whether or not they decide to have a reconciliation based on that discovery, whether they decide to have a settlement based on that discovery, that's a different ballgame. It's not for me to decide. That is for the parties to decide, because I'm not a judge. They are their own judges. Can I read on? I think the mediator who has opened an effective line of communication between the parties can be deemed to have succeeded at his or her task. So that's basically repeating what I just said. So I will just read on. Communication itself is an art of passing information across, of transferring one's thoughts meaningfully without being blocked by or degenerating into an argument. So when a thought can flow through from one person to the other, that's communication. When it is blocked, when the thought cannot pass across, when they're not able to transmit their thoughts or thoughts to the party that needs to hear them, that needs to know the way they are thinking or what they are thinking, that is not communication. So communication is where it's really a unblocked channel. And mediators are great at, or should be great at, removing blockages in the channel, in the communication channel, so that the thoughts can pass through. I read, there are two types of communication: verbal, that is speaking, and non-verbal, body language. Effective communication comes from, a proper use of verbal and non-verbal communication. Parties will learn to communicate effectively between themselves when their mediator is himself an effective communicator. Okay, so let me take the first part. Effective communication comes from a proper use of verbal and non-verbal communication. And I've explained what verbal and non-verbal is. Verbal is words. Non-verbal is the body language. Now, this is very, very important in mediation. And I explained that earlier. I said that when parties are talking, especially when the other side is there, they may not be able to say everything that is in them. I think that's pretty fair and clear. Because especially at the beginning, you are not, there's a conflict. Probably a lot of damages has occurred. Maybe a lot of suffering has occurred. Maybe a lot of, maybe the party has been deeply, deeply hurt. So you do not expect them to be to express it, to meet or bear when the other party is there. But as a mediator, you must be able to read their body language. A good mediator can, maybe not always, but sometimes, can read the body language and be able to understand what they are saying non-verbally. And that's why we say here, effective communication comes from a proper use of verbal and non-verbal communication. You are able to let the thoughts flow, even when it's not in words. There's an adage, the Yoruba adage, which, and it's also English. A word is enough for the wise. So where does the wise put the other part of the the other part of the words? Well, Yorubas will say half a word. The English say a word is enough for the wise, but the Yoruba will say half a word. It's even more challenging. It's half a word is not for the wise. As a matter of fact, they say that you don't tell the wise person everything. You don't need to tell him everything. Just tell him half. He or she will be able to fill in the gap. Well, but in mediation, that's the truth. The mediator has to learn to fill in the gap. Like I said, especially when the parties are still hot. As the mediation goes on, people may feel more free, with the other side, with the mediator. But the mediator needs to know what they are thinking. And so you can't say you are waiting for later. You need to listen with your heart, empathic listening, to understand what they are communicating. Let's read on. Parties will learn to communicate effectively between themselves when their mediator is himself, herself, an effective communicator. That's what I just explained. The effective communicator is a person who is able to take one word, and because she is wise, able to know the full details, fill in the gap. The effective communicator is this wise person who is able to get half the word and complete it. And this is because it is through effective communication that the mediator demonstrates his skill. Yeah. Probably the key skill of the mediator is effective communication, ability to communicate, especially in difficult situations. And this generates, and that's the skill of the mediator, generates trust, which is crucial to the disputants, opening up to the mediator and eventually to themselves. I think that people will be pleased or are pleased when you say just half of it and your mediator is able to pick it up. I think by itself, it draws respect, which is a big part of trust. And so they're able to let you in more and more because you demonstrate wisdom, the wisdom of the effective communicator. We probably should stop here today, and then we'll continue in lecture. And that will be 42, our discussion on the person of the mediator. Please remember to subscribe before you leave, if you've not already subscribed to this channel. Remember to apply these skills. I will feel fulfilled if I'm sure that you are not just participating in this lecture, but they are impacting your life positively. You're able to communicate better. You're able to listen better. You're able to understand better. You're able to take people from conflict to resolution better. That will give me a great deal of joy. I'll be very, very pleased. It will also be great if you can get a copy of the book or the textbook titled How to Resolve a Conflict. Which I said, like I said, I wrote, and as I also said, it's available on all Amazon channels, outlets. Thank you again for joining me, and I'll see you in lecture 42. Much obliged.